The first thing I want to talk about is that the test and trace failures are closing down our schools. So the test and trace failures, as in the lack of availability of COVID tests, is really hurting our education system. And the General Secretary of the NAHT, which is the National Association of Head Teachers, Paul Whiteman, recently commented that, quote, tests need to be readily available for everyone so that pupils and staff who test negative can get back into school quickly. He went on to say the government assured us that this would be ready, but at the first sign of stress, it seems to be falling over. And he finished, this will put the successful and sustainable return of schools at serious risk. And so they went on to survey 736 school leaders by the Leadership Union, and they found these stats. And I want to show you this on screen. And this is what's quite alarming to me. Currently, 82% of schools have children that are currently absent because they cannot get a test. 82% of our schools have absent children because of this. But it goes on further. 45% report staff are currently not at work because they cannot get a test. Again, the government failures is having a massive impact on our education system. And if you go even further, you find out that only 14% have had confirmed cases of COVID-19 in their schools. So again, here you see a massively disproportionate response to the virus. We have a small number of actual confirmed cases, and yet most of our schools and many of our leaders and teachers cannot report to school because they can't get the tests they need in a timely fashion. This is a massive failure by our government, and it's causing a disproportionate response to this virus because they are not able to get us the science that we need. And this is what I've been talking about for the past few months. And it's really affecting our schools. It's affecting our education system, and it's affecting and turning our kids into what we're calling a lost generation. And if you go even further, Jeff Barton, who's our General Secretary of the Association of School and College Leaders, warned, quote, chaos is undermining the efforts to keep schools open, with more than 200 head teachers reporting delays in getting tests. This is very serious. And when you go even further, Kevin Courtney, who's the Joint Secretary of the National Education Union, said the government needed to do more. He said, quote, heads have told me they find it extremely frustrating because they have made their schools COVID secure, but then they find out it's been undone by the lack of tests. And when you actually go into the Department for Education, you ask them to find out what is actually going on. Unfortunately, they've been reticent to provide the numbers of confirmed COVID-19 cases among school pupils, saying, quote, it won't provide a running commentary. So again, our government is not providing us the tests, which means our schools are suffering. We've got 82% of the schools now that are currently have students that are absent. 45% of staff currently not at work because they can't get a test. This is the government's failures, and it's now eating into our education. It's affecting our students. And again, we see a lack of leadership with the test and trace system. We see a disproportionate response to the virus because we're shutting down schools and holding back teachers when a small percentage of students are testing positive. And finally, we're seeing a complete lack of science-based decision-making because we cannot get the tests back into the people's hands that need them right away. And we all know the stories out there of children that can't get tests fast enough, so they have to isolate, their children have to isolate, and it's closing down our education system right now, and it's just not acceptable. So I want to get your thoughts right now. Please, wherever you're watching this, type in and tell me, how would another school lockdown affect you as a parent, as a student, as a teacher? Tell me, what do you think of our current test and trace system and its failures? How can we prevent ourselves from creating a lost generation? And do we need better leadership?